Now, some of you have asked me for my recommendations on summer reading. So here's a few suggestions. Now, most of these, in fact, are not anything close to being new books. And I think there's a lot of lists out there for new books that are out, new releases. You can reference all kinds of different experts in that arena. I figured instead that I give you a bunch of can't misses, most of them from the past. You pick one or two that you haven't read, but they're all classics nonetheless. And I will give you a recommendation for different types of categories of topics that you may like or prefer. And maybe you've likely heard of a few or you've read a few, but I'm guessing you haven't read them all yet. So let's start with military history. If you like military history, give any Stephen Ambrose book a read. He was a prolific author of military history and general history. He's most noted, I think, for World War II and his writing on that. He wrote Band of Brothers, which became the cable TV hit. But any of his books are worth the read. So pick a topic historically that you're most interested in by Stephen Ambrose and pick that book up. You'll enjoy it. If you like culture and you like culture essays and maybe some political essays or political culture, right? Pick up a book of Joan Didion's essays from the 60s and 70s. So she, was a very prolific writer, of course, just passed away not recently, within the past year or so. But in the 60s and 70s, I think she did her best work. And there's different collections of her essays. I think her essays were the most effective of her writings. So some genius stuff there. She was awesome. Slouching Toward Bethlehem is probably her best single piece. A colleague of Joan Didion's at that time was Tom Wolfe. And if you like technology and adventure, The Right Stuff is for you. That's an awesome book by Tom Wolfe. Way better than the movie version, but that's usually the case, right? Books are usually better than the movie versions. If you desire some solitude and getting in tune with nature, if that's the mood you're in, you can't go wrong with Thoreau's Walden. It never gets old. You can reread it over time. I've read Walden a number of times through my life, and every time I read it, I get a different perspective and a different angle on it. It's a great book for something like a summer vacation. If you like historical fiction, I'm a big fan of historical fiction. There's a guy out there, Eric Larson, and it's Larsson. His books are epic. Any of his books are great. My favorite is Thunderstruck. But I think you'll really enjoy that if you like historical fiction. You sort of learn something. It's a bit of a drama that he takes some liberties in writing the storyline. It's a great combination to be entertained by. If you want a great rock music biography, amazingly, Keith Richards' bio, it's called Life. It's really good. I'm shocked that guy remembered way more than I thought he would have, considering all the partying and substance abuse that he engaged in through the years. But it's a really good read, and you learn a lot about sort of the history of the group, the Rolling Stones, of course, and sort of his journey through all of that. If you like sci-fi, like Sturgeon, and you're looking for a classic, Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, timely as ever. It's like when that guy wrote it in the UCLA library basement, he sort of foresaw what was going on in 2022. I wrote an essay on that one, on how that story came about and the parallels to today on nickdelius.com if you want to give it a look. It's under the commentary tab under literature. But Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, can't go wrong with that one. Political and historical bios, American Ulysses, that's on General and President Grant. It's great. The author is Ronald White, one of the better historical bios that you will read. What a story and what a great American Ulysses Grant was. If you want a road trip book, so you want a book about traveling and road trips, John Steinbeck, his book Travels with Charlie. Now, I think you guys know from prior episodes that I love John Steinbeck. I read all his stuff. I went to his museum in Northern California that they dedicated to him. No one talks about this book, Travels with Charlie. It is a travel log that Steinbeck made while circumventing the country in a camper with his dog, Charlie. And I believe it's the last book that he wrote before he passed away. So when you're on a road trip, it's a great book to read about a road trip. So that's a good one, Travels with Charlie. If you like drama, suspense, and tech, one of my favorite authors of all time, Michael Crichton, State of Fear is a particularly good one, and another one that resonates very loudly today with what's going on with environmentalism. And again, experts agree and studies show that sort of whole issue that we covered in episode 57. And then last but not least, if you like suspense and horror, I've mentioned before, I'm a big Stephen King fan. I know that's sort of lowbrow for a lot of literary experts, but I love the guy. I mentioned before in a prior episode, The Institute is a more recent book that's a really good story and a really good read. Unless, of course, you haven't read The Stand by Stephen King, in which case, if you've not read The Stand, ladies and gentlemen, you drop everything right now, run to the store or go online, order that book, and start reading it. It's an awesome, awesome story. I'll talk to you next week with a fresh new episode. Till then, stay out of the 90% that is crap and toil on in the 10% that is great.